There is a silence that weighs more than any radio signal. It is the silence of those who observe without being seen. We have been conditioned to think of space as a desert of rock and ice, governed by immutable mathematical laws. But what happens when the mathematics stop working? When an object doesn't just fall through the vacuum, but chooses where to go? 3I/Atlas is not just an interstellar intruder. It is an anomaly that is rewriting our planetary security protocols. In the last 48 hours, new data from Southern Hemisphere radio telescopes have confirmed what many feared: the object has changed speed. Again. It isn't a reflection, and it isn't the outgassing of natural volatiles. This is an intelligent course correction. While official space agencies maintain their silence, the missing segments of telescopic data are beginning to reveal a much more disturbing truth. In this video, we will analyze the thermal sensor leaks, the artificial nature of its surface, and the hypothesis that no one dares to say out loud. We are not alone. But perhaps, we are not the observers. We are the observed. Welcome to the final analysis of 3I/Atlas. To understand the magnitude of what we are facing, we must look at the data that was never supposed to reach the public. When 3I/Atlas first entered our solar system, it was classified as a standard near-Earth object. But the numbers didn't add up. Astrophysicists rely on a predictable trajectory called the Keplerian orbit. A natural object follows gravity. It doesn't push back. Yet, as Atlas approached its perihelion, the point closest to our Sun, something impossible happened. Telescopes in the Atacama Desert recorded a non-gravitational acceleration that exceeds any known comet's outgassing. There were no jets of cyanide or carbon monoxide. There was no tail. The object didn't crumble under the sun's heat, it utilized it. This brings us to the most controversial evidence: the missing segments. Between November 12th and 14th, as the object performed its most aggressive maneuver, 3 major orbital observatories experienced simultaneous technical glitches. 48 hours of high-resolution telemetry were wiped from the public servers. Why? What did those sensors capture that required immediate classification? Independent researchers, using leaked thermal imaging, suggest that the object's surface temperature didn't just rise, it regulated. It stayed at a constant 273 Kelvin, regardless of its distance from the solar flares. In the language of physics, that isn't a rock. It's a heat shield. But the anomaly goes deeper than thermodynamics. We've analyzed the light curves, the way the object reflects sunlight as it tumbles. A natural asteroid has an irregular, chaotic flicker. Atlas, however, pulses with a mathematical precision. Every 17.4 seconds, the albedo shifts by exactly 0.3%. This isn't the rotation of a jagged stone. It is the rhythmic signature of a stabilized, hollow structure. If this were a natural phenomenon, we would find traces of its origin in the chemical composition of the interstellar medium. But the spectroscopic analysis reveals something unheard of. Traces of processed isotopes. Elements like magnesium-26 and aluminum-26 in ratios that do not occur in nature, but are essential for high-strength aerospace alloys. We are looking at a craft that has survived the interstellar void for millions of years. And now, as it leaves our inner system, it is not simply heading back into the dark. It is aiming for a specific point in the Kuiper belt. A point of gravitational stability. It isn't leaving. It's parking. At this point, we are forced to move beyond observation and into the realm of theory. The scientific community is currently split between 3 distinct explanations for the 3I/Atlas anomaly. Each one is more radical than the last. The first is the exotic natural hypothesis. Some astronomers suggest that Atlas could be a hydrogen iceberg, a remnant of a molecular cloud that we've never seen before. In this scenario, the invisible propulsion is caused by hydrogen sublimating directly into the vacuum, leaving no visible tail. It's an elegant solution that keeps our traditional physics intact. But it fails to explain one thing: the precise geometric regulation of its thermal signature. Nature creates beauty, but it rarely creates precision engineering. This leads us to the second, more haunting possibility: the Bracewell Probe theory. In the 1960s, physicist Ronald Bracewell proposed that an advanced civilization wouldn't send radio signals across the galaxy, hoping to be heard. Instead, they would send autonomous, AI-driven scouts. These probes would enter star systems, position themselves in stable orbits, and wait. They would listen for the first signs of a technological civilization. If Atlas is a Bracewell probe, it isn't here to contact us. It's here to grade us. It's an automated sentinel, triggered by our own transition into a multi-planetary species. But there is a third theory. One that is whispered only in the halls of classified research. The necrosignature hypothesis. What if Atlas is neither a natural rock nor a functioning scout? What if it is a relic? Interstellar space is vast, and time is the ultimate destroyer. We could be looking at a fragment of a civilization that collapsed millions of years before the first humans walked the Earth. A ghost ship, drifting through the graveyard of the galaxy, still following a course programmed by creators who are long since extinct. This would explain the decaying signal, the erratic yet controlled rotation, and the scars on its hull. It isn't a visitor. It's a message in a bottle, written in a language of metal and isotopes that we are only beginning to decipher. But as we track its latest trajectory, a new question emerges. If Atlas is a relic, why has it suddenly accelerated toward a specific Lagrange point? A ghost doesn't change direction unless it still has a destination. We are currently monitoring a series of low-frequency pulses coming from the object's core. They aren't patterns of communication, but pulses of energy. As if something inside is waking up. As if the probe has finally found what it was looking for. And it might be us. But there is a question that the official reports refuse to answer. If 3I/Atlas is merely a dormant relic, why has the background radiation of our entire solar system begun to fluctuate in synchronization with its rotation? We have always looked at the stars as distant, cold lights. We never considered that the stars might be looking back. For decades, we sent our radio waves, our music, and our coordinates into the darkness, believing we were shouting into an empty canyon. But the canyon wasn't empty. It was occupied. Deep space telemetry recently intercepted a low-frequency hum, a sound that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space. It's not static. It's a rhythmic, pulsing vibration that matches the atomic clock of our own GPS satellites. It's as if the object is tuning itself to our planetary frequency. Government-level blackouts are no longer just about hiding data, they are about hiding the panic. Because when you look at the thermal spikes recorded in the last hour, you realize this isn't just an object moving through space. It is a machine warming up after a billion-year sleep. And its eyes are finally opening. But the most terrifying detail isn't what the telescopes found in the Kuiper Belt. It's what was discovered right here, on our own soil. 6 hours ago, a leaked memo from the Global Seed Vault in Svalbard and several deep-sea cable stations reported a synchronized anomaly. As 3I/Atlas adjusted its orientation toward Earth, our planetary magnetic field didn't just ripple. It recorded a data injection. For a fraction of a second, every digital system connected to a satellite uplink, your phone, your car, the grid, processed a string of non-human code. It wasn't a crash. It was a handshake. Independent cryptographers who managed to capture the burst have released a haunting visualization of the signal. It's not a map of the stars. It's a map of us. Our DNA structures, our neural networks, our cities. They aren't just arriving. They already have the keys to our house. The question is no longer, what is Atlas? The question is, what has it already changed inside our networks while we were busy looking at the sky? As you watch this, the signal is still propagating. It's not a broadcast from the stars anymore. It's a broadcast from within our own infrastructure. Everything we have analyzed, the trajectory, the thermal regulation, the processed isotopes, leads to a single inescapable conclusion. 3I/Atlas is not a passive visitor. It is a reactive system. But the most chilling discovery wasn't found in what the object is, but in what it is doing right now. As of this broadcast, long-range sensors have detected a massive surge in gravitational wave emissions centered exactly on the object's core. It is no longer just drifting. It is anchoring itself to our solar system's gravitational well. Imagine the solar system as a vast, stretched fabric of silk. For eons, every planet, every moon, and every grain of dust has rolled along the predictable curves created by the sun's weight. We called this harmony. We called it the laws of physics. But then, 3I/Atlas did something no star or planet has ever done. As it reached the precise gravitational tipping point between Jupiter and Earth, it didn't just pass through the fabric. It reached out and grabbed it. The sensors at the LIGO Observatory didn't just record a ripple, they recorded a scream in the vacuum. To anchor itself, Atlas had to generate a localized mass density so immense, so artificial, that for a split second, the moon's orbit shifted by a fraction of a millimeter. Think about the power required to do that. It's like a ship in a violent ocean throwing out an anchor made of collapsed stars. Through the infrared lenses of the James Webb, we saw the space around the object begin to warp. The stars behind it didn't just twinkle, they bent into halos. Atlas was no longer a visitor subject to our sun's will. It had become its own sun, its own master. Now, it sits there, motionless, defying the centrifugal forces that should be hurling it back into the interstellar void. It is a splinter in the eye of the universe. An unmoving ghost in a system where everything else must move to survive. It is waiting. And as it holds its position, we realize with terrifying clarity, you don't drop an anchor unless you intend to stay. You don't anchor unless you are preparing to unload or to harvest. The silence that followed. In the 72 hours after the anchoring event, something else happened. Something the public was never told. Every deep space radio telescope on Earth went silent. Not because they stopped working, but because they stopped listening to us. They all turned, as if compelled by an invisible hand, toward the same coordinates. Toward Atlas. At the Arecibo Archive Recovery Center, a young intern named Dr. Elena Voss noticed the pattern first. The telescopes weren't just pointing at the object. They were synchronized. Pulsing. As if breathing in unison with something far away. She ran the data through a spectral analyzer, expecting noise. Instead, she found rhythm. A mathematical sequence embedded in the gravitational waves Atlas was emitting. Not random. Not natural. It was a countdown. 60 rotations of Earth. 60 days. And with each passing day, the frequency increased. The anchor wasn't just holding. It was charging. NASA convened an emergency session. The proposal was simple, terrifying, and unanimous. If Atlas is a ship, and the anchor is set, then what comes next is the cargo. But Dr. Voss asked a different question. One that froze the room. What if we're not waiting for something to arrive? What if the anchor is already pulling something toward us? What if Earth is the cargo? The simulation models told the story her words could not. If Atlas maintained its current gravitational output for another 48 days, it wouldn't just hold position. It would begin to drag. Slowly. Imperceptibly at first. But the orbit of Earth would start to elongate. To stretch like a rubber band being pulled toward a fist. We wouldn't feel it in our lifetimes. But our children would inherit a longer winter. Their children, a dying sun. And their children's children would never know what a season was. Atlas wasn't anchoring itself to stay.